This week I'm sharing 7 things I've learned from the Sound Advice Tour, recording and mixing all kinds of audio. So I had the opportunity to watch the video coverage of the Sound Advice Tour with Mark Edward Lewis, which is basically a 5.5 hour course all about sound for film. So the first thing I learned was a really simple trick that I kind of wish I'd thought of before. When you are scouting for locations, why not look at a map and find out where the nearest airports are, if there's any big roads nearby, or train tracks. All of these things could be a big problem in terms of sound, and just by looking at a map you can get a pretty good idea from the beginning what places are going to be a no-go. Mark also shared his way of doing ADR. First you give the actors headphones and you loop the original audio over and over. Keep it going and then just record them while they follow along by ear. So he's found that it's easier for actors to focus when they're just listening to themselves rather than looking at themselves on screen. So if I ever have to do dialogue replacement, then I'll definitely try this method. So speaking of fixing it in post, he also demonstrated some software that was pretty good at removing background hiss and even like clipping distortion as well as mic bumps. It was pretty impressive to say the least. I usually just assume that you can never fix it in post, but to see that the technology is getting to the point where what used to be just completely done and completely ruined can actually be made to the point where it's just about usable is pretty cool. Now, of course, you can avoid all of this, including paying hundreds for the software if you get it right on set, but it's still good to know that there are options if you get stuck. So next up, I remember seeing this on a Star Wars behind the scenes video, but basically you can use a keyboard for Foley. You can load your sound effects into a program like Logic, and then you can just play the sounds like a keyboard, which is so much quicker than trying to drag 100 different footsteps into your timeline. Combine that with the traditional Foley method, which is more like a performance, and you should be covered. Now, I actually learned a lot from just watching the trailer for the course, so I'll leave a link to that on the blog post. But it's got really good pace, it's a great concept for a sound course, and it's just worth watching for inspiration. Now, he also gave a basic introduction to EQ and compression. And I've got to be honest with you, I did learn quite a lot of this stuff in a music technology course at school. And we've talked about it here on the show before. Tricks like boosting frequencies to find the bad parts and reducing those, and also using it to separate things, often the music from the dialogue. So if you've never used EQ or compression before, then you'll definitely learn a lot. But in that case, I'd recommend that you just watch a couple of YouTube videos, because really, it's basic stuff. So I've got to be honest with you, this course doesn't quite live up to the high expectations set by Vincent LaForêt and Shane Helber in their filmmaking courses. It does have plenty of worthwhile takeaways, but it's just more technical, which I think is not really my thing. But my favourite part, which I do think they actually covered really well, was this. For your whole life, your brain has been filtering out loads of sounds. From birds tweeting to a fridge humming in the background. And if we listen closely, we can hear those sounds, but most of the time our brain is pretty good at tuning out the sounds and really focusing on the one thing that matters most, human voices. So if we want to recreate that, if we want our audiences to feel comfortable, then we need to have all those bass sounds there so that the brain can tune them out just like it normally does. Our brains don't really know how to deal with total silence. If you don't believe me, just watch this. So this has got me really inspired about the importance of sound. Most of the time it's entirely subconscious, but simply adding those little sound effects and those ambiences makes such a difference towards immersing the audience, and that is definitely something worth spending time on. My name's Simon Cade, this has been DSLRguide, and I'll see you next week.